Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this public meeting of the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board to order today, the 23rd of June, 2025, and welcome all those who are in attendance. I acknowledge that we are meeting this evening from multiple locations in the unceded and unsurrendered ancestral homelands of the Algonquin Nation. And I would like to thank the Algonquin people for their enduring stewardship of these lands since time immemorial, and for sharing the grandfather teachings and other knowledge with us so generously. In accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, does any board member have an interest to declare? And seeing none, I would like now to move on to the report from Committee of the Whole in camera. Vice Chair Milburn.
The board met in private session this evening and reports and recommends as follows: that staff proceed as directed in board private session involving a financial matter. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We have had the discussion of this matter in our private session, and I will ask Manager Gatley if he could please open the vote. And we have the results. The motion is carried, 11 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. In other words, unanimously. And Vice Chair Milburn, you did indicate that concluded your report. So we should move on then to item 7 on our agenda, approval of the agenda. Who would like to move approval of the agenda? Trustee Dixon, seconded by Trustee Lyra. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Trustee Lyra.
Thank you. So at the beginning of June, I put a motion forward, and as it is time sensitive, and I was disappointed to find it did not make it onto the agenda, I'm asking that it be added to the agenda as item, I believe it's 16.3. Nope, between 16.2 and 16.3. Specifically, the motion to have the OCDSB participate in Capital Pride each August. Does anybody need me to read that motion before we discuss this?
I'm not seeing anyone requesting that it be read at this point.
Okay.
2/3 majority vote to add later.
And we do need to have a 2/3 majority vote to add this to the agenda. The amendment needs a seconder. So do we have a seconder for this amendment? Trustee Milburn will second that.
Sorry, Chair. It's actually a 3/4 majority to add a substantive item to the agenda.
That is correct. I thought I'd said 3/4, but I must have not done so. Which means that we need a minimum of nine voting in favor to add a substantive item to the agenda. So that is debatable. Did you wish to have introduction, Trustee Lyra?
I would. So as some of you are aware, the OCDSB did not participate in Pride last year, and there was much contention amongst the LGBTQ community about that decision. The motion before us is intended, or the motion I'm proposing to put before us is intended to ensure that the OCDSB participates in Pride every year. There is a chance that the staff make a decision to withdraw us from Pride moving forwards this year. It has been indicated that is not likely to be the case, but I would like it to be understood that it is the will of the board that the OCDSB participates in Capital Pride, specifically in the parade. And so, knowing many members of the LGBTQ community felt betrayed by large organizations' decision not to participate in last year's parade, I would like it to be understood that it is the will of the board moving forward that we do so. I believe this is time sensitive. This is our last meeting before the parade in August, and it is June, which is Pride Month. And for both of those reasons, I think it is most appropriately discussed on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. I will ask staff for comment.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you and good evening. From staff's perspective, at the time last year with respect to a decision around Capital Pride Parade, this school year and any school year going forward, the organization represents the entirety of its community. Since the time between last August and this August, the district and I've received direction from the provincial government around participation or guidance in not participating in events that could be inflammatory or considered of a geopolitical nature. That was part of the statement placed by Capital Pride last school year. I'm very pleased it's not the statement that Capital Pride has made for this school year. So even with a Board of Trustee perspective, and I know there's varying perspectives around the table, the direction from me provincially is not to engage the organization in something that could be considered of that point. I'll pull up the specific wording, but I have had direction on the 25th of September this school year not to engage in items that would be tied to a political orientation or other.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there any other discussion on the motion to add this to the agenda? Trustee Bell.
Thank you very much, and through you, Chair, I would like to thank Trustee Lyra for bringing this forward. I think everything is political, really, ultimately, and so I think it's important to engage in issues that align with our strategic plan, that align with our commitment to ensure social responsibility. I know that there's many people around this table that have felt and worked very passionately to ensure that our students, our educators know that the Capital Pride is something that we support our students, that they don't feel alone. And I'm so grateful for the work that they have done over the years. And I think that we as a group need to continually demonstrate, because it was put to the test last year when we didn't show up. People questioned why we didn't show up. And for us to come forth and say that we don't even want to have a discussion about this right now sends a huge message. And so thank you, Trustee Evans, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Trustee Bell. Trustee Blackburn.
I'd like to call the question, Madam Chair.
We have a motion to close debate. Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Milburn, thank you. All those in favor of closing debate at this point? And the motion to close debate is carried. Back to you, Trustee Lyra, for wrap up.
So I think I said it before, I will reiterate in brief. It is important that we have this discussion now, because in June of last year, there was no question in anyone's mind that we were going to be participating in the Capital Pride Parade. We owe it to the community to say very clearly that we support LGBTQ members and that we will show up to their events. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will call the question then. All those in favor of adding this to the agenda? And opposed? And the motion fails. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? And seeing none, I will call the question then on the agenda as presented. All those in favor? And opposed? That motion is carried. Next item that we have on our agenda this evening relates to the Chair's Award. And the Chair's Award is unique in that it is the only one of our community recognition awards that lies in the hands of the Chair of the Board. It is an award that is given for a significant contribution over a period of time to the district as a whole. And this evening, I am very pleased to announce that the award is going to CALSA Aid Ottawa this year. And very pleased indeed that we have the leader of this initiative, the food drive that so many of our schools participated in, Mandeep Singh, with us this evening, and a number of members of his team. Older and one very young. And so what I would like to do is to ask that as I state your name, each one of you stand and stay standing to be recognized by all of us. First, I would like to call on Mandeep Singh. Please stand. And Rupinder Kaur. Hertek Gill, Carmen Perhar, Neetu Singh, Parkirat Kaur, Rajdeep Shahil, Sahib Moga, and Shivdeep Pal. And did I miss somebody? Who did I miss? And so wonderful to have had the pleasure of seeing the fruits of your labors, bringing 16 of our schools from all across the district. What really impressed me is very much that you did not, this was not an East End or a West End or a South End or a downtown thing. This is reaching all of our district's communities, and it is doing good for all of our district's communities because the summer period, particularly for any of our families that are food insecure, the children are not in school. They have no access to breakfast programs or other nutrition supports. And it is so wonderful to see our students being inspired to exercise their social responsibility as part of the larger community to bring everyone together. So I would like very much to say thank you and congratulations. You have earned this award. And I'm going to call a 5-minute recess because I'm sure that some of our board members would like an opportunity to actually meet some of you. At this point, I would like to call our board meeting back to order. And we are now at item 9 on our agenda, the Student Trustee Annual Report. And I believe we have Student Trustee DeStefano online. Are you ready to present the report for you and your colleagues?
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to read the report. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so the position of student trustee was first introduced in 1999 when the government mandated student representatives on school boards across Ontario. In 2006, the Education Act would officially establish the role as it's known today. 25 years in, these student representatives continue to shape the future of public education within every school board in the province. Student trustees act as a liaison, again, between student bodies and board governance, ensuring student concerns from over 78,000 students in the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board, and together, the over 2.2 million students in Ontario are heard. Elected by the students of the board, student trustees for the 2024 to 2025 academic year are Jeffrey Zhang, Sharanya Siva Sathya Nathan, and Ezio De Stefano. This year marks the first year in which 3 student trustees fulfilled their roles, up from 2 in previous years with the introduction of the Indigenous student trustee position, which is me, student trustee De Stefano. Jeffrey Zhang is a grade 12 student at Earl of March. Sharanya is a grade 12 student at John McCrae. And Ezio De Stefano is also a grade 12 student at John McCrae. For more information about the student trustees, please refer to policy 017, student trustees in section 55 of the Education Act. The OCDSB student trustees report serves to inform the board of trustees, staff, and students about the work student trustees have undertaken throughout the year. This year's report outlines advocacy initiatives, student senate work, and provincial advocacy at the Ontario Student Trustees Association. So for Student Senate is the official committee representing secondary student views in the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board, made up of 1 senior senator and 1 junior senator per secondary site, as well as the 3 student trustees and other senior staff. The group of around 50 elected student leaders serves to bring student voice to the table. At monthly meetings hosted at the board office, the Student Senate discusses current concerns, advises senior staff, trustees, and student trustees on the ongoing initiatives and collaborates on various projects. Student senators are tasked with regular outreach with their peers, hosting town hall meetings, and collecting feedback on board events. And the student trustees are incredibly grateful for all this support provided by the senior staff. Special thanks to Vice Principal Julie Planker, Vice Principal Ann Arden, the Superintendent Prince Dua, and Sama Suleiman for all their ongoing support. This year we've been
Ezio, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt you here because we do all have the full written report in our agenda package. And what I'm wondering is if you would like to just do the highlights that you would flag as one of our student trustees. And then I expect there will be probably a few questions from trustees about some parts of the report, which we would love to hear from you about. Would that work for you?
Yes, of course. And I'll try my best to answer any questions. I wasn't expecting my student trustees not to be here today, so it's a bit of a surprise, but I'm happy to try my best.
And you'll do just fine. Thank you.
I'll just get to the highlights. So each subcommittee of the Student Senate developed and executed projects of their own. So examples of their work include the monthly Student Senate newsletter, EDI spotlights and workshops, the district-wide Student Senate survey project, and various other proposals. The student trustees are immensely grateful for the dedication and initiatives shown by senators over the course of the year and look forward to the implementation of similar projects in the future. So for artificial intelligence, this was student trustee Jeffrey Zhang's initiative. So they just decided it was important for the OCDSB to tackle ethical AI usage and provide clarity for students. The goal was to ensure that student voices were heard in creating policy that focused on educating students about and not just regulating the use of AI as a beneficial tool that empowers education. The student trustees would then consult with both students and educators, and these conversations would highlight uncertainty in how to effectively use AI and when it is allowed, but also a belief that AI will transform the future of education and the workplace. While it's often framed as an academically dishonest and a form of cheating, it's clear that it has its place as a beneficial tool in the classroom. As this technology advances, students must be educated on how they can leverage it an ethical manner in the workplace and beyond. The student trustees look forward to the creation of progressive AI policies that enable the OCDSB students with the skills to thrive. So for the elementary program review, Jeffrey Zhang and I, unfortunately, student trustee Siva Sithianathan was absent and unable to contribute, but we participated in a recorded vote. Student trustee Zhang and I voted against the cuts to alternative program and special education streams in the OCDSB outlined by the elementary program review. This decision was made after student trustee Siva Sithianathan and DeStefano made classroom visits at their home site, John McCrae, urging their peers to share their voice in the decision-making process by answering the publicly available survey. The survey was also shared with the OCDSB Student Senate by staff during a monthly meeting prior to the decision made by the student trustees. Ultimately, the Student Senate and student trustees came to the conclusion that students deeply value the special education streams and alternative sites for their sense of support, belonging, and success. As a result, it is their hope that the OCDSB staff and trustees will continue to check in with students through avenues such as Student Senate and publicly available surveys to assess the quality and accuracy of their decisions on the EPR moving forward. For the Ontario Student Trustee Association update, Student Trustee Zhang served in the position of VP Policy and Research, where he had a leadership role in writing and researching the organization's policy platform document. Spanning 35 recommendations over 30 pages, this document titled Vision 2030, Enriching the Student Experience, covers a variety of policy recommendations to the Ministry of Education, stemming from the concerns of the 2.2 million students the organization represents. So from expanding nutrition programs to improving mental health resources, indigenizing curriculum, and strengthening special education funding, this project entailed extensive research on current issues in education and consultation with the Ontario Student Trustees Association, General Assembly, partner organizations, and other student trustees from a variety of school boards. Student Trustee Zhang has worked extensively on informing the organization's policy viewpoints and bringing a student-centered approach to its advocacy through the inclusion of first-hand testimonies from all over the province. For the chair of Student Wellbeing, for the Student Wellbeing Advocacy Group within the Ontario Student Trustee Association, Student Trustee Siva Sithianathan served in this position on the Ontario Student Trustees Association leadership team. The role just entailed facilitating meetings of roughly 20 student trustees from across Ontario, brainstorming and enacting initiatives dedicated to the promotion of students' physical and mental well-being within school boards. In addition to meeting facilitation, Student Trustee Siva Sithianathan also had unique privilege of connecting with organizations such as the School Mental Health Ontario, collaborating on Here Now Ontario, which is a student involvement campaign, and inviting representatives from the organization to speak directly to the student trustees about implementation science at Osta ECO's Education Action Conference in Ottawa of February this year. In her capacity as an advocacy leader, leading the initiation of internal organization-wide projects like the creation of Flex Days, mental health advocacy resource, she was also an outspoken leader on behalf of Ottawa students' experiences with the recent vaping and cell phone bans. As a member of the PPM 128 task force at the Ontario Ministry of Education, Student Trustee Siva Sithianathan appreciates the integral learning and development gained from this experience on the leadership team. And thanks to the OCDSB staff who supported her throughout the process of attending meetings and participating in conferences. Serving on the organization's leadership teams, Student Trustee Zhang and Siva Sithianathan had the privilege of amplifying student voice at the provincial level, working with partner organizations and the Ministry of Education. Student Trustee DeStefano was also part of the Ontario Student Trustees Association's Indigenous Student Trustees Council, where she collaborated with other student trustees on issues important to the Indigenous students in the province. Additionally, the Student Trustees attended numerous OCDSB conferences throughout the year, including the Fall General Meeting in November, the Education Action Conference, and the Annual General Meeting in May, along with the incoming student trustees. These conferences provided opportunities for professional development, networking with fellow student trustees, and engagement in provincial level advocacy. Finally, student trustee Zong and Siva Satyanathan attended numerous leadership team retreats throughout their terms, coordinating with members of the leadership team on advocacy projects and planning conferences and participating in professional development. So this is just a letter from student trustee Zong. It's his closing remarks. I'll just read it on his behalf. So serving as an OCDSB student trustee over the past year has been one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences of my life. It has truly been an honor and an immense privilege to be trusted to represent the diverse students of the OCDSB. Through the various responsibilities of this role, I've learned so much about what leadership and representation means at a large scale, and how being a leader means standing up for those who may not be able to. When I found myself in the boardroom, both in person and online, at Toronto conferences or in student senate meetings, I have hosted meetings, talked to partners, and advocated for causes in ways that I would have never been comfortable doing just a year ago. And even though it feels like my time in this position has come up and gone in a flash, I leave my term as a student trustee as a more confident and capable leader. But my exceptional experience over the past year is only possible because of the amazing support I have received. Thank you to Vice Principal Prankard, Superintendent Dua, Sama Suleiman, Vice Principal Arden, Chantel Olson, Amanda Presley, Lyra Evans, Darren Gatley, the OCDSB Board of Trustees, senior staff, the members of the 2024 to 2025 Student Senate, and the OCDSB Co-President's Council. And of course, thank you to the students of the OCDSB for the privilege of representing you. Our work would not be possible without this support, and I'm immensely grateful. Throughout the past year, I have seen the board work tirelessly to place student concerns at the forefront of their decisions. Trustees and staff dedicate themselves to improving the student experience every single day, and I've come to appreciate their contributions to a strong public education system and its impact on society. As the OCDSB continues to navigate its mandate, sometimes encountering difficult decisions and compromises, I encourage and trust that it will always place students first, because public education is meant to serve all students and empowering every single student to thrive. So yeah, that was Jeffrey's letter. I just said it on behalf of him, but I do have to echo everything he said. It was a beautiful letter. But that's all I have to say for the final report. I'm happy to open it for questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Thanks to you and to Sharanya and to Jeffrey for pulling that together. It sounds as though it has been quite the year, and especially I'm really pleased because I was a little bit worried about the size of the Student Senate when the changes were made to the Student Senate policy and how that would be manageable. But you three have managed to make it a workable thing, and I was very interested to see the formation of an Indigenous Youth Council, because that is another important part of the work that needs to be done. So I do have a question for you on the report from Trustee Lyra. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I was really interested in your perspective around ethical use of AI in schools, and if that was shared by the majority of students in the Student Senate and other people from OCDSB. The report was a little light on detail, and I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about where the student body in general sits on this and where you are hoping that the district moves in the future.
So I wasn't much involved in this initiative, but from what I've seen in the Student Senate and from OCDSB is really just to find a happy medium between academic dishonesty and using AI as a beneficial tool. um, but I really do wish that Student Trustee Zhang and Student Trustee Sivasithianathan could be here to elaborate a little bit more, because they were more involved in the in more of the
In the writing of the
specialized
reports?
meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I thought your answer was insightful. I'm sure we're going to hear more about the use of AI, generative AI from the next student trustees. Thank you so much for sitting on the board, and I hope that university treats you well.
Thank you very much.
And next, I have a question from Trustee Nash.
Yes, and thank you, and through you, Chair. And my question was also with relation to AI, but Trustee Lyra asked one component. The second component, I'll turn to staff actually to ask the Director of Education on our AI policy. Sorry, I know at one point we were discussing it, but is there an official working document in relation to AI?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to Manager of Business and Learning Technology, Sandy Owens, for a commentary on the progress to date on our work around emerging technologies.
Through you, Chair. Over the past year, there has been a working group that has been examining basically trying to put together a framework for the use of AI in the district. We have consulted with students, we've consulted with staff, and basically we have put together a draft framework that looks at a variety of components, for example, privacy, security, ethical use, bias, the use of AI in learning, and the focus of using it as a tool to enhance learning. And what we are hoping to roll out in the fall is a variety of resources for staff, for students, and also for parents, so that they can understand how AI will be used in the district in terms of as a tool to enhance learning. So more to come in the fall, but that work has been ongoing all year. We are also working collaboratively with other districts so that we are aligned with other districts in terms of the approach we take with AI.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing the report. I'll just end by also thanking the three co-chairs of the Student Senate for their work. I particularly always appreciated the newsletter that was spearheaded by the Student Senate. I found it always very helpful and good reading. So all the best to you, and thank you again to our three senators.
Thank you, Trustee Nash. Are there any other questions for Student Trustee Stefano? And I'm not seeing any. Normally at this point in our meeting, we would be asking you to come to the podium, and we would be able to make some remarks about student trustees. And I think that despite the fact that we do not have everybody here in person this evening, it's still important to acknowledge the contributions that you three have made through your service as student trustees during this year. You have brought the Student Senate together into a stronger group. You have found ways to work with more voices so that all of those voices can be heard. And you have been able to continue with some of the other initiatives, for example, the work with thinking about AI, the concept of trying to find ways for a stronger student voice in board policies, and also the creation of the Indigenous Youth Council, which are all three significant steps forward that I'm sure our next year's student trustees, your successors, will be interested in building on, because it is a learning process, and it is an important one, particularly when you are able to bring the student voice directly into the boardroom. That is very much appreciated. Director, would you like to make some remarks at this point?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you. I wanted to share as well, Ezio and to the to Jeffrey and Sharenza, my gratitude for your leadership, your voice, your contribution, the work that you've done on behalf of students has not gone unnoticed. We appreciate your input at the board table, your openness to the conversations, and wish you the very best in your future endeavors. I know you're all heading on exciting paths forward post-secondary, and we wish you all the very best and hope that you stay in touch with us. You are always welcome here at the OCDSB. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Now, we would have liked to be presenting you with a small token of our appreciation and your honorarium for this year in the boardroom tonight. But since that is not possible, we will be making arrangements to make sure you get all of that before you are off and away to your post-secondary endeavors. And in the meantime, a personal thank you to you, Ezio. I've seen you so many times participating at the Indigenous Education Council meetings during your term, and that has been very much appreciated by a lot of people. And in absentia to Jeffrey and to Sharanya as well, for keeping that ongoing liaison with the other student trustees across the province and bringing the Student Senate together for important and significant discussions. So thank you very much and all the best for next year.
Thank you
And
very
moving
much.
on then,
Oh, sorry.
did you wish to make some remarks of your own, Ezio?
Just very quickly, thank you very much to you, Trustee Scott. You've been amazing throughout my entire term, and so insightful. And I'm so glad to have sit on the board with you this year. And thank you so much to the rest of the OCDSB staff and trustees. It's been a very intense year and definitely the busiest year of my life, but I'm really happy to be moving on. And I was very disappointed I couldn't get an Indigenous student youth council student body assembled yet, but I'm very excited to pass that on to the next incoming Indigenous student trustee. I'm sure she'll do great. Thank you.
And thank you very much again. We will miss you next year. So with that, that brings us to our item 11 on the agenda, which is briefing from the chair of the board. And I do have a short briefing this evening. First of all, in this last week of the 2024-2025 school year, on behalf of the board, I want to extend our sincere gratitude to all school councils across the district for their incredible dedication and hard work. Your unwavering commitment has been instrumental in supporting OCDSB students, their families, and communities. You've played a vital role in fostering connections, building partnerships, and organizing enriching events for students and very often their families also to participate in. Your efforts have significantly contributed to student success and helped create a sense of belonging and support within each school community. The work, unfortunately, is not quite done, but to help councils as they wrap up the year, we have recently emailed information about year-end reporting, records management, community use of schools, and more of the nuts and bolts, keeping organized things that school councils always do in the background when they are not organizing the amazing events and supports that we have in our schools. So please refer to that communication for all the necessary details that you need to be thinking about at this time of the year. and have a wonderful summer, all of the school council participants. Second thing on my list tonight, registration is open for the 2025 summer virtual credit recovery programs. These secondary credit programs are designed for students currently in grades 8 to 12 and for adult learners working towards their high school diploma. In addition, remedial programs are offered for students in grades 6 to 8. The Summer School 2025 programs are being offered in person as well as virtually, and details are on our OCDSB website. That ends my briefing. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions? And seeing none, we move on to the briefing from the director.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, good evening. As the school year comes to an end and we get ready to transition into the summer, both parents, guardians, caregivers, and their children may be experiencing a number of different emotions. It might be excitement and relief, but also worry or concern. This may be especially true if your child or teen will be moving to a new school in the fall, or if they're graduating and moving on to the next phase in their lives. The truth is, even positive transitions can bring feelings of stress or anxiety for our children and ourselves, as these transitions force us to learn, grow, and adapt. The OCDSB mental health team has shared a few strategies that parents, guardians, and caregivers can use to support their children as they navigate this period of ending and of new beginnings. This was included in our recent updates and is also available on our website. During the summer months, we will continue sharing updates about the new elementary program model that will come into effect for the fall of 2026. An exemption process is being developed and will be communicated this fall. Please watch your email for more information about the exemption process, eligibility criteria, and timelines. Finally, families can register all summer long for school that starts this September. Our admissions department is ready to help your family to start their journey with the OCDSB. Whether your child is starting kindergarten, new to Canada, or new to our district, we look forward to welcoming them in our schools. Please visit our website to register online anytime. That ends my briefing this evening, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And are there any questions for the Director? And I am seeing Trustee Lyra.
Thanks. I was wondering if you could comment on the heat wave and how schools are dealing with the unusually high temperatures.
That was not part of the briefing. That should be raised under new business.
As you wish.
Trustee Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director, for your sharing information. What has, for the upcoming exemption registration in the fall, are you sending out to families information though this June? Will they receive that by email communication?
Through you, Madam Chair, I appreciate the question, Trustee Jenkins. I'll turn it over to Associate Director Reynolds, who will provide a little bit of detail on some of the messaging that will go out this month.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yes, there will be some messaging with a rough timeline of the process and how it will unfold throughout the fall. We'll have that out by the end of this month, so this week.
And I'm not seeing any other questions, so thank you for your briefing, Director. Moving on then to item 13, you will see in your agenda package that we have a written delegation from Professor Gerald Kemi on the subject of anti-Semitism. This particular delegation is here as a result of a longstanding request, which unfortunately could not be accommodated on an evening when we had a related topic on our agenda. However, I did want trustees to have access to it before the end of the school year. And I would like to express appreciation to Professor Kami for his patience on this. So please read that, and the full version will be circulated separately to all trustees. Moving on then to the confirmation of board minutes from the 27th of May, 2025 board meeting. Do we have a mover to confirm those? Trustee Nash, seconded by Trustee Dixon. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? And I'm seeing no hands raised, so I will call the question on confirmation of these minutes. All those in favor? And opposed? That motion is carried. And we also have the minutes of our 17th of June 2025 special board meeting. Do we have a mover for this set of minutes? Trustee Forty, seconded by Trustee Lyra. And again, are there any errors or omissions in this set of minutes? And seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? And that motion is carried. Is there any business arising from either of these sets of minutes? And I'm not seeing any hands go up, which brings us then to matters for action. And I will call upon Trustee Milburn to move receipt of the 3rd of June 2025 Committee of the Whole report, please.
I will now move receipt of the June 3rd, 2025 Committee of the Whole report.
And is there a seconder for that? Trustee Jenkins. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? Seeing none. On the question of receipt, all those in favor and opposed, motion is carried. And are there any recommendations in that report? Trustee Milburn?
In my speaking notes, I have no recommendations in this report.
Thank you.
But I believe there was a notice of motion that evening in the report that is not currently in these recommendations.
Could you repeat that, please?
The notice of motion provided by Trustee Blackburn is not included in the speaking notes as a recommendation for that evening, and I believe it was on that evening.
Oh my God, this is a lot.
And Manager Gatley informs me that there was a vote that was missed. And we should address that. So we will, well, the thing is, what we'll deal with that as a consent item. If it is a consent item, otherwise we debate it. So yes, there is a motion there. I will go back to you, Vice Chair Milburn, with regard to that motion.
One moment, please. Okay. On a motion moved by Trustee Blackburn that I will second, that the Director of Education continue to engage in discussions with the Ottawa Police Service to establish standards of practice that allow for police support to schools, respecting the safety and security of the board's students and staff, and that staff be directed to prepare a report to the Board of Trustees providing an update on the current status of the district's relationship with the Ottawa Police Service no later than September 30th, 2025.
Thank you for that. And is this a consent item?
Point of order, we appear to be amending the agenda after we have approved it. This was not listed as an action item in the agenda that went out.
It may not have been listed as an action item, but it is in the report that we were receiving, and therefore I believe that it is in order to deal with this recommendation.
Madam Chair, you are inferring that it is in the report, but it was not in the report to be voted on. You are changing the agenda.
I rule that it is in order. That is our normal practice. When there are recommendations requiring a final decision by the board, we deal with them at our subsequent board meeting, regular board meeting. And I am ruling that that is in order. And if you wish to challenge the chair, you may. If there's no challenge to the chair, I will ask again, is this a consent item?
It is not.
And it is not a consent item, so we will deal with it when we reach the non-consent items. And was that the only recommendation in this particular report? I think so. So moving on then, 16.1B, this is the 17th of June Committee of the Whole. Vice Chair Milburn.
I will now move receipt of the June 17th, 2025 Committee of the Whole report.
Seconder for receipt, Trustee Dixon. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? And I'm not seeing any. I will call the question on receipt. All those in favor of receipt? And opposed? Motion is carried. And are there any recommendations missed or not missed in this report?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
So that then will conclude your report, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Moving on then to receipt of the Committee of the Whole budget reports, Trustee Jenkins.
I will now move receipt of the May 28th, 2025 Committee of the Whole budget report.
And a seconder for that, Trustee Nash, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? And I'm seeing none. I will call the question on receipt. All those in favor and opposed? And that motion is carried. And as I recall, there were no recommendations in that report. Moving on then to the next item. I think that's you again, Trustee Jenkins.
I will now move receipt of the May 28th, 2025 Committee of the Whole budget report.
That's the one we just
Oh,
did.
sorry, sorry. I will now move receipt of the June 10th, 2025 Committee of the Whole budget report.
Thank you. And again, are there any errors or omissions in this report? And seeing none, all those in favor of receipt and opposed, motion is carried. And no reports in that one either.
There is recommendation
In
June
the 10th, not in the 10th, I think. Which I think brings us to the 11th of June. And you have one more report.
So I will move receipt of the June 11th, 2025 Committee of the Whole budget report.
And we need a seconder for that. Trustee Forty. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? And apparently not. So I will call the question on receipt. All those in favor and opposed, motion is carried. And as I recall, there was one recommendation in this report, which we dealt with at our special board meeting. So that then concludes your report.
That concludes my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on then to non-consent items. We do have a non-consent item, which is the motion by Trustee Blackburn at our Committee of the Whole meeting on the 3rd of June. Trustee Blackburn, would you like introduction?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I don't really have an introduction. We debated this motion, including proposed amendments and such, so I look forward to the board passing this quickly, as we've already debated it.
And is there discussion on the motion? Trustee Lyra.
All right. I'm intending to vote against this motion. For reasons that I have mostly outlined at the committee meeting. It is disrespectful to a community to continually come back and ask them to re-expose why they are opposed to having police in schools. This report, when it comes before us, is not going to include consultation with the broader public. And so it's not going to be able to give us nearly as much information as the extensive report that we have already commissioned on this topic. We are wasting staff time producing this report. We are being disrespectful to the public for the time and energy they did in creating the first report. And I do not think it is in the best interest of the board to open this can of worms again.
Thank you, Trustee Lyra. Are there any other speakers to this motion? And I'm not seeing any. Would like to speak to the motion. If you could take the chair, please, Vice Chair Milburn.
Please go ahead, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I do have one question through you to the director, and that is in terms of the content of an update report, what would the scope of it be? Would it be to give us an understanding of how things are actually being done at the school level with the changes that have been made most recently in the OPS? And would its scope be basically confined to the small operational pieces that we have not been hearing very much about?
Through you, Madam Chair, precisely. We, staff, can provide a report through Associate Director Reynolds on the Ottawa Police Services new community youth model, community youth unit model. For the Board of Trustees, we can also provide an update on our protocol with OPS and the nature of that relationship, areas that seem to be progressing smoothly, areas where we might need to give greater attention. That would be the aim from staff's perspective on providing an update. I'll just ask Associate Director Reynolds if there's any other comment he'd like to make, but in essence, that would be the nature of the report coming forward.
Thank you. Through Madam Chair, nothing substantive over what the director said. We haven't really had an opportunity to turn our minds to it much yet, given everything that's happening to wrap up the current school year. But I believe the intention was to provide more of an operational overview of how that relationship's proceeding and what services in schools look like.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know. And that's all my questions.
All right, thank you. Chair, back to you.
Thank you. And since we have no other speakers, back to Trustee Blackburn for wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, I'd like to thank Trustee Evans for sharing her opinion on this matter and for your very important question. Thank you. And
this vote will be taken now. Manager Gantley will open it in eScribe. And we have a result. The motion is carried, 7 in favor, 4 opposed. And that moves us on out of non-consent items to item 16.4, report 25-041, trustee resignation and appointment process with reference to Zone 9 and Zone 10. Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, I will turn this over to General Counsel Mark with my gratitude for the preparation of this particular report and the timeliness of it at this final board meeting of the school year.
Good evening, trustees, and through you, Chair. I don't believe there's much need for me to present this as a report. It's pretty much self-explanatory. The recommendation in the report is that the board accept the resignation of Trustee Kaplan-Murth effective tonight, and that the board also accept the resignation of Trustee Bell effective on June 30th, which I believe is the end of this week, and that the board implement the same process that it followed for the last trustee vacancy that existed. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but I think it's relatively straightforward.
Thank you. Thank you for the quick overview. And what we have here is the report with several appendices and several recommendations. Trustee Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I'd like to move the recommendation, please.
Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Jenkins, thank you. And would you like introduction?
None required, Madam Chair.
Discussion on the motion, Trustee Lyra.
Thanks. My only question is, if an interested individual decides they wish to put their name forward, must they specify a zone for which they're putting their name forward?
Through you, Chair, yes, that's the way the process is envisioned, and there would be separate votes at the special board meeting held for this, separate votes for each of the 2 vacancies. However, from an efficiency standpoint, it would be possible to hear all of the presentations together so that we didn't have to kind of bifurcate the meeting into 2 separate meetings.
I'm of the opinion we can figure that out when we figure out how many people we have. But my question is, is this intended to preclude somebody from putting their name forward for both zones?
That's not my understanding. I don't see any reason procedurally or legally why someone couldn't put themselves forward for both zones, but I think they might want to explain that at the time of the presentations.
I mean, in the interest of not hearing the same person make the same pitch twice, I am of the position that we should preclude people from applying for both zones. Is there any mechanism or reason we could not do that?
Thinking on the fly here, Chair, and through you, and it's never great to think out loud on the fly, but the legislation is framed and the policy that we have is framed such that the board can determine its own application process as it sees fit. What you have in front of you in terms of the process in Appendix C duplicates essentially what has happened in the past, but I acknowledge that what's happened in the past has not been 2 vacancies at the same time. So if the board wanted to craft something unique for that, it would be open to the board to do so. I don't know that that's necessarily tonight. I think for the purposes of tonight, we're mostly focusing on accepting the resignations and following the general same process. What you do have in the Appendix C is at the very end of Appendix C, it says that the process will be amended as necessary or something to that effect to account for multiple vacancies. My request would be that the trustees leave it to governance services to design an appropriate process between now and that meeting to make sure that that happens.
As long as the understanding that the governance services have is that people should pick one zone and apply for it, then I am happy to leave the resolution as it stands. Is that the understanding the governance services has?
I understand your point. I think, though, that it would have to be the board as a whole that puts that forward as a requirement, as opposed to, well, I hear your point. I think the board as a whole would need to give that directive. And I'm not sure that that's the directive that the board would want to give as a whole, because it may be that the board wants to encourage people to apply for both vacancies and to consider how to vote on that on the night. They may want to limit your presentation to just one presentation, even if you've applied twice. But the board may, and some members of the board may want to encourage people to apply for as many vacancies as exist.
All right. I would like to propose an amendment to this then. Am I good to start? Okay. So I'd like to propose that bullet 3 be amended to include the following words. That the board implement the trustee vacancy appointment process outlined in report 25-041, except as follows, : that any individual applicant may only apply for one vacancy of the multiple vacancies available. One vacancy of the multiple vacancies available.
And do we have a seconder for that amendment?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Trustee Blackburn will second that.
No, I said I had a question about it.
Sorry.
A question about it.
Well, before we
Okay.
get into questions,
Then I'll
let's make
second
sure
it.
that it is going to be
Thank-
properly on the
Yeah.
floor. Do we have a seconder for the proposed motion? Trustee Donna Dixon. So now it is properly on the floor, and let our mover of the amendment have an opportunity to introduce the amendment, and then we will go to you as a first next speaker on it. Trustee Lyra.
I'll be brief. So the role of trustee is as a representative for a specific community. It doesn't feel appropriate to me to have people just say, I don't really care which community I represent. I want there to be a specific connection that an individual has to the community they purport to represent. And I do not want to sit through the same person's presentation twice, as well as if they make it through the interview round both times, they would have previous knowledge of the questions we intend to ask. So I have multiple concerns about allowing an individual to apply for one specific, for each role as opposed to one specific role.
And so Trustee Blackburn, anything further?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the board's information, I believe it was 2009, I myself ran for an appointment to this fine institution, and I actually lost on the 7th ballot to somebody who did not live in Barrhaven, Knoxdale, Maryvale. But my question is, Madam Chair, to staff, and I perhaps think he answered it already, but is this amendment even legal? I don't know that we can limit somebody.
And that is a question that would be referred to our general counsel, I think.
I'm happy to answer the question, Chair. I don't think it's illegal to require that you only apply for one vacancy of the multiple vacancies. What I will say is that there's no requirement that a candidate reside in a particular zone. That's the only kind of piece of this that is relevant. So there's nothing preventing the amendment from being on the floor from a legal point of view.
And if I may, and council can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but in an election process, you can only put your name forward for one office, but an appointment process would not be legally the same as an election process?
Yes, that's right. And just so that it's clear, in an election process, you are running and dependent on the votes of the constituents in that area. However, on an appointment, you're not depending on constituent votes, you're depending on the votes of the existing trustees. And upon being appointed as an incoming trustee, you are a trustee of the entire district. And that's true, in fact, of all of the current trustees too, is that each of the trustees sitting around the table tonight are trustees of the entire district, even though they were elected by members of a particular constituency.
Trustee Blackburn?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm as always going to listen to what my colleagues have to say, but I do have some concerns. And I see the rationale behind this amendment, of course, but I do have some concerns about it. But I'll gladly listen to what other people have to say before I make a decision. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next on my list on the amendment, I have Trustee Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. And so normally, I agree, this is interesting because we have two openings, vacancies. Normally in elections, we are running in one zone, but because it's, we are appointing, we could perhaps use the example from other provinces that use, that elect their trustees from an at-large perspective. So you have 10, let's see, people put in their name forward, you elect the top two. That way applicants can choose, you know, they don't have to decide specifically which zone. So it does raise an interesting dilemma, but certainly the at-large option could be reviewed.
And again, I look to general counsel for that because right now our structure is that there are 12 zones and there are no at-large zones. There are some districts in the province that do have some zones set up for at-large elections, but not very many of them. General counsel, did you have any comment on that one?
I do not think it would be possible to, for example, just say, here are the 10 candidates, we're happy with the top 2, let's give candidate 1 to this zone and candidate 2 to that zone. I do think that you need to have separate ballots for each zone and say, this person is being voted on for this zone, and or these group of people are being voted on for this zone, and this group of people is being voted on for this other zone. But from an application point of view, which is I think what the amendment on the floor is about, I don't see any problem with allowing applications for multiple vacancies. For example, it's just so that I'm clear, if I apply for zone 9 and zone 10, and the vote for zone 9 happens and I lose, it doesn't necessarily mean that I might not win the vote for zone 10.
Anything further, Trustee Jenkins?
No, that's it.
Trustee Forty.
Through you, Chair, I just think the amendment might get into the weeds a little bit here without us knowing how many applications we're going to get for both positions. So I'm not in favor of the amendment. I'd rather get as many applications in as we can for both zones, and then decide from there, when we see what interest we have, how we're going to proceed. This to me feels we're a little ahead of the game here.
Thank you. Trustee Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think for my colleagues looking at this, while we're doing this expeditiously in terms of lumping 2 resignations and 2 appointments into the same report and same period of thought, they're, in my opinion, they're effectively 2 separate appointments, right? So if had these resignations been a month apart, we would theoretically would have potentially run 2 separate appointment processes in which an individual who applied for one could then a month later have applied for the other one. So if we're thinking about it in that frame of mind, we do need to account for that element, that what we're doing expeditiously ourselves is not necessarily aligned to what an external view of the appointment process would be.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion on the amendment? Was that your hand, Trustee Dixon? No. So back to you then, Trustee Lyra, for wrap up.
Yeah, actually, Trustee Lee made a very persuasive argument, so I'm going to vote against this. And so at this point, I think everybody should.
So I will then call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? And all those opposed? And the motion to amend has been unanimously opposed. I think that's first. Other discussion on the motion? Trustee Bell.
Okay, so thanks. I want to start off with my gratitude for everyone that is part of this institution, the educators, the staff, the community that really steps up. After, as you may have seen, I put my resignation forth in my local newspaper so that my community could hear the reasons why I was stepping down, but I want to make sure I have a couple of moments to say some things here. It's the past 5 years representing my community as a trustee, as vice chair, has been a really great honor. And it's really important to reflect on why we sit around this table. And obviously, it's for the students. Throughout this time, however, it's a challenge. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a partner, I have a full-time job, and I think everyone has a lot of intersectional realities in their life, and it's a challenge. But while it hasn't always been easy, especially as my family was looking to expand, to have another child, what I really was always inspired by was the work that was done in schools. The work that was done by those educators going to Richard Path or Cambridge Street and seeing the way that children's lives were changed by our school system was absolutely incredible. And I'm very impressed because all the way from the board down to the custodian, there's so much that goes into the day-to-day life of students. As you know, I think everyone around here knows, my husband and I have been able to adopt a really incredible little girl from Mexico. And she has brought so much joy into our lives. And sitting around this table, as much as I love my community and my commitment is strong, sometimes you got to put family first. And so that's the main reason I'm stepping down. I also mentioned in the article the toxic nature of this board and how it has been very challenging to sit here around this table at times. And I'm not pointing out any individual. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but my hope is as you move forward, you continue to look in your heart and remember why we're here. Remember that it's about the students. Remember that we have the power to make a real difference and not to focus on the petty issues that come up behind the scenes and to treat each other with respect, because that's why we're all sitting around this table. So despite systemic challenges and chronic underfunding, like I said, the lives of students are being changed, and we see it in our graduation ceremonies over the next couple of days. You'll see it on the faces of the people that cross the stage, and that to me made it all worth it. The late nights, the issues that we had to deal with behind the scenes, the ones we had to deal with in public. I came on right before COVID, and we had a lot of work to do. And I'm really happy with what we've done. And so for those that come after me, please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. You can't come into this position with your eyes closed. There's too much work to do. It's too important. And again, I thank you all for your commitment, and especially those volunteers that continually show up time and time again to give us the best advice they can. And with that, I'd like to thank my family, and especially my partner Guillermo, for all of the Tuesday nights and the other nights that he stayed home with our children, and to my daughter Shanti and my daughter Chai for sharing me with all of you. Thank you so much, everyone.
And thank you, Trustee Bell, for all of that. Other speakers to the motion? And I'm seeing none. Trustee Milburn.
Can I request that we separate the two recommendations and vote on them separately, please?
Yes, I believe we would
Right.
have to
Sorry, the three.
separate the recommendations because my recollection is that the trustee who is offering their resignation is not permitted to vote on whether or not to accept it. So we will have to have three separate votes in any event. Everybody can vote on the last one who is here. So with that, back to the mover for wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. None required, but I would like to thank Trustee Bell for her words, and it was very nice that she could join us in person tonight.
Thank you, Trustee Bell. So can we have the vote opened on one part of the motion at a time? Part A being that the board accept the resignation of Neely Kaplan-Mirth, trustee for Zone 9, effective 23 June 2025. And everybody can vote on that one. And the motion is carried unanimously. And I would like to thank Trustee Kaplan-Mirth for her service to the board. Moving on then, Part B of the recommendation, that the board accept the resignation of Justine Bell, trustee for Zone 10, effective 30 June 2025. And we have the result, and the motion is carried 10 in favor of the 10 eligible to vote. And on Part C, that the board implement the trustee vacancy appointment process outlined in Report 25-041. And again, the motion is carried unanimously, 11 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. Moving on then, our next action item is Report 25-036, the Special Education Plan for 2024-2025 and Special Education Report 2025. Oh, lovely. I will call on Superintendent Stout to present the report. 25-036. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you so much. And through you, Chair, we're excited this evening to bring to you the report for the Special Education Plan for 24-25 and the Special Education Report for 2025. I brought System Principal Deborah Lyon with me this evening, and she spends a significant amount of time reviewing recommendations from SEAC and going through the plan to update it for us to present to the ministry at the end of July. And so I'm going to pass it quickly over to her to share with you some of the highlights from the plan and the report this year.
Thank you and good evening. The purpose of the Special Education Plan is twofold. One, to inform the public about the manner in which the school board is carrying out its special education responsibilities, and to report to the Ministry of Education. There are precise requirements for special education plans for all school boards, as well as the standards against which their special education plan will be measured. The standards reflect what the Ministry of Education considers to be necessary to meet the needs of exceptional students. In accordance with Regulation 306, the school boards must submit a special education report on the delivery of their special education programs and services to the Ministry of Education every 2 years. We also submit a special education report. This is an odd year, so we have both the plan and the report here in the agenda. The purpose of the report is to provide the Ministry of Education with a summary of the provision by the school board of special education programs and services. The revision process is extensive. We begin with the Special Education Advisory Committee meetings, where we review standards from the Special Education Plan. We put 2 standards in every SEAC meeting in the fall, September, October, November, and December. And then we also provide the Special Education Advisory Committee with the other remaining sections, which they could review independently and submit their responses to us. A regular part of the review also includes a review of the current data, such as expenditures for equipment, professional development opportunities, the SEAC membership, students identified through the IPRC process or having IEPs to ensure key information is up to date and reflects district practice. It also includes information on the professional development by the central team. Key updates to the Special Education Plan for 2024-2025 include a continued focus on the staff development standard on inclusive education practices, and an update to the board's consultation process and the board's model for special education standards to include current initiatives that LSS has been focused on, including the elementary program review. We also include a moving forward section, which outlines our upcoming work that we want to focus on for next year. Some of this work focuses on our continuous improvement and opportunities to increase the accessibility of the information for staff, parents, guardians, and where appropriate students, such as in the IEP parent guide and the IPRC information provided to parents. The approved special education plan and the special education report are forwarded to the Ministry of Education by the end of July. We look forward to reviewing the report and the special education plan.
Thank you for that. We do have a recommendation in the report, Trustee Lyra.
I guess I'll move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Trustee Forty, thank you. Introduction?
I have a couple of quick questions. So I have a question about how our wait lists are projected to look moving forwards. I know that we've had ever-growing wait lists over the last number of years, and with the cuts that we have approved at the budget, I'm wondering what impact that is likely to have on wait lists moving forwards.
Can you be a little bit more specific in which waitlist in particular, or do you mean in general?
Sorry, I was speaking specifically about diagnostic wait lists for students who are suspected to but have not gotten a formal diagnosis for exceptionalities.
Thanks for the clarification. So I think it's important to recognize that going forward to get, let's say, a psychological assessment, that requires us to really go through those tiers of intervention very specifically and really make sure that we've looked at all those intervention levels and understand the student profile to the point where the multidisciplinary team is reviewing it and saying we need more information. And so with all of that in mind, I think how the waitlist will be impacted moving forward is difficult for me to predict. What I can say is that at this point, school teams review those students who they believe that they're at the point now where they're looking for further information. And then it would go to the psychologist to determine whether or not it is that they would accept that referral as moving forward, kind of with the assessment. So currently, I don't have the waitlist number right in front of me at this moment. Do I anticipate a huge jump in the waitlist? No, I don't. I think that through the budget cuts, we did try to have different disciplines impacted, each discipline impacted in a small way instead of one discipline impacted in a large way. So I'm hopeful that our current waitlist, that kind of level of where we're at now, would continue to be our reality.
Yeah. I have a question about the impact this is going to have on the number of students sent home midday. So there are cases that have been brought to our attention a number of times about people saying, my child gets sent home at 10 o'clock because there isn't the support necessary just to keep them in school. I'm wondering what is being done about that and ensuring that child's right to an education.
So with respect to the special education plan and report, what I can say are those numbers are, this is not the place that those numbers would be up for discussion and really part of this particular report. But what I can say is I certainly recognize that a lot of students with special education needs might find themselves in that situation. It's certainly ongoing work. I believe trustees received a memo from Superintendent Keene this past week regarding exclusions. And so that is work that we are turning our mind to in terms of the numbers of students who are on a pause for safety, for example, and really understanding who those students are and making sure that we're working very closely with school teams. The reality is that our desire is to have every child in school for as long as we can support them with the resources that we have available. And so if we are in a situation where we do have a student on a reduced day, the intention is that the school team is working closely with families to build that plan so that they can increase their time at school.
I'm curious why you think special education students being sent home in the middle of the day because we don't have enough EAs is not a special education issue.
I don't think I intended that to be how it was received. So it's not that I don't think it's a special education issue. That's not it at all. I just think it's not necessarily represented within the plan. The special education plan is very standardized and set out to us through Special Education Ontario what we are to include in this report. And so my intention was to state that it's not within this report that we would include those numbers.
Okay. I am a little bit concerned about the impact that the budget is going to have on the availability of EAs and the availability of our general supports for students. You touched a little bit on the impact the budget is going to have. I was wondering if, I've asked this question for a number of years, if there was an amount of money that we had to spend on special education that you thought would meet all of the needs of all of our students, what is that number?
I'm not sure that I can fully answer that question. What I would say is we have a deficit, fairly significant deficit in special education. And so if I was going to choose a number, I would say a number perhaps where we would be breaking even in special education would be a good place to start.
Yeah, Peter said he could never come up with a number either, so it's not your fault. Okay, those are all of my questions. Like I said, I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Lyra. Any further discussion on the recommendation? Trustee Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I don't have any questions about your report. I'd just like to thank both of you for being here tonight away from your families. I'd like to thank you for all the work you do during the day for our students and families. I am fully aware that your jobs are done under extremely challenging situations, and that I've been sitting here for 15 years, and the fact that we don't have enough EAs has been in part because boards of trustees have chosen to spend their money in a way that they shouldn't have. So respect. Thank you.
Any additional discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, back to the mover for wrap up.
None required.
In that case, Manager Gatley, could you please open the vote and e-scribe? And we have the result. The motion is carried unanimously, 11 in favor, none opposed. Thank you very much, Superintendent Stout and Ms. Lyon. Moving on then to matters for discussion. First up, we have a report from OSTA. Trustee Lee. We can't hear your.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Trustee Lyra, questions for OSTA?
Yeah, could you explain how the decision to cancel the meeting on June 25th was made?
That's an optional meeting, and that's the decision that's made by the general manager in consultation with the chair.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions with regard to OSTA? And seeing none, that moves us on to a report from OPSPA directors, and I call on Trustee Jenkins.
Nothing to report this evening.
Are there any questions for Trustee Jenkins? And I'm seeing none, which brings us to have a quick look at the board work plan, which once again has been updated. And if there are no questions or comments on that, we move on to matters for information. We do not have any new matters for information. And that brings us to new business. Trustee Lyra.
Thanks. I'm going to return to my question from earlier. The director could comment on the heating and cooling situation in many of our schools and how we're coping with the heat wave.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair, appreciate the question from Trustee Lyra, especially on a day like today. A couple of comments, both from an adaptive and a technical front. Technically, over the past weekend, and my gratitude to Associate Director Giroir and his team in facilities, including Dan Bradley, who activated through staff a number of the ventilation and cooling systems. Sometimes those are drawn down over the weekends and then activated back up early on a Monday morning, coming back off the weekend. Same applies for our heat during the winter. They did that throughout the weekend to have as optimal a temperature starting the day this morning. They also, on a technical front, look to circulate some of the air systems to a greater extent in the mornings than in the afternoons, when there tends to be hotter air circulating. So they drew down some of the afternoon ventilation, maximized it in the morning to try and help our school sites. Beyond that, every school that we have has at least one common area with air conditioning, where we've asked our school administration, and of course they know this instinctively about their sites, to try and circulate classes through that or have that available for students who need a little bit of the cool temperatures where they could. We know that not every school has air conditioning, so they've done that. Beyond that, a series of adaptive measures, including water breaks that are frequent in nature, utilization of outdoor spaces, especially under the shade or in breezy areas, depending on the locale, as well as really making sure that our staff, to the greatest extent possible, draw the blinds, keep either windows open or closed, depending on the advantageous nature of their situation. Our staff are well versed in their sites and able to do that. So we've looked at a number of measures over the last number of days to prepare for today and actually for this week, with a number of leaving and graduation ceremonies. So we're monitoring that over time.
Thank you.
Is there any other new business? And I'm seeing none at the moment. What I would like to do, however, before we get to the meeting adjourned, I would like to say thank you for all of the work that you've all put in, and to our staff, including those who aren't here tonight, for all of the work that you put in. We have had a very challenging school year this year, but we have managed to accomplish some very significant things, and that is only due to the will around this table and across the district to see our students succeeding and being well supported. And we're doing the darndest we can. I hope that summer school for those who are attending will go smoothly, and I look forward to getting back to our regular meetings in September. Thank you all so much. We stand adjourned.